Hello and welcome to Husky Talk. I am your host, the best podcast host in the universe, Steve Cully. And with me today, a very special guest, Mr. Gino Herring, who is also the founder and CEO of Best Candidate. Best Candidate. Just before I get it too far into it, thank you, Gino, for reaching out and being with us. I love being able to talk to Huskies from different eras, so I learn a little bit more about the history. Uh, Tell me a little bit about Best Candidate because there's a lot going on there. It's exciting.
Yeah, so thanks, Steve. Thank you first, for having me on here. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to introduce myself and kind of get some exposure about what we're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah.
Um, Currently in Florida, a long way from UConn, but I'm, born and raised down here. Played football up there, of course, but back down here, trying to incorporate some education in our elections process.
Right.
Um,
Right.
you
I
know,
read
um,
that.
I think that a lot of that has been absent in our process, and I think that's the root of the issue. And we're trying to address that as a team of people trying to get a mobile application off the ground
I
that
saw
deals
that too.
specifically with voter education. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here.
No, I've heard that. But like being up north, I'm in New York, so it's different here. But you hear the Florida education system is a little bit different and may not could use some changes. Is that kind of along the lines of what you're feeling, or is that what you're trying to accomplish with it? I know it's more involved with voting, but the education apparently is getting a little overlooked. Would you say?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I think there's a lot going on with education specifically. I'll talk to the Florida region, but I think it's a nationwide issue that we just
It
don't
is
prioritize. We don't prioritize
100%.
education, and when you
I, I
have
I
the
would
yeah,
I would love to call my mother in here right now. My mother is a retired teacher, and she was infuriated yesterday. My father was watching the golf tournament, and they went into overtime, and my mother was asking, "How much money are they making? Is the winner going to make?" And my dad looked it up, and it's like $20 million, and she just shook her head in disgust. And she's like, "Teachers, like we started at 30 or $40,000, and they're handing $20 million to these golfers."
that's right. But
I'm
only
like,
because we spend the money to watch the
that's
games.
what I said. I said, "Mom, it's supply
Supply
and
and demand.
demand."
That's it.
I said if 50,000 people weren't showing up at these events, then they wouldn't get paid
Absolutely right.
$20 million. So,
Absolutely right.
but going back to you, you're from Florida. Did you play football? I mean, if Florida is a football state, and it's a whole different world
Mhm.
compared to what I've been used to in New York. I coached some college ball at Holy Cross at Massachusetts, but the Northeast, like I think if we played anyone from Florida 10 times, we'd probably lose 10 out of 10. I don't think we'd even win the one. But did you play football at an early age in Florida? Because I know it's different and they start a little bit younger.
Oh, it's a good thing you mentioned that I started at the age of 3. So at 3 years old, I was playing flag football,
You were
and
running routes at 3 years old.
absolutely, I got a
Oh
picture
my God.
with all my fist in the air. It's in our blood down here. And it's not just tackle football in the neighbor's yard. It's street football sometimes tackle.
Yes. Yeah,
And
you play all
so
the time.
my down the road, actually about 3 blocks down, I had some neighbors that actually drew a gridiron with spray paint along from stop sign to stop sign. And so that was our two-hand touch when it was raining, and it was tackle when it wasn't raining.
You-
So that's growing up football in South Florida.
they drew they drew it on the
They
concrete
measured
on
it
the
out.
road.
They
Oh,
measured
that
it
that
out. The
wow.
end zone was the manhole covers all the way to the stop sign. Yeah, so
That
we
that
we
that may be the greatest story I've ever heard.
we
But
take it seriously
I
out here.
completely believe it. I completely believe it. So so at 3 years old, You're playing flag football.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
7 years old, tackle football.
It's not 7 years old. So
7
yeah.
years old.
So like we don't start here. It used to be like when I played it was 9 for tackle. Now I think it's like 11 or 12.
Mhm.
And then you go right into junior high. So it's a little bit different. But at 7 years old, you're putting on the pads. At 3-year-olds, you're introduced to the game. So it really is in your blood.
Yeah.
And you're invested in it by then.
Yeah.
Did you take to it right away? Did you love it right away, or did it take a little more time to kind of pick up the love and passion?
Well, football was just one of the sports. I mean, we played baseball, we played basketball, we played murder ball, every kind of ball.
You
there
did
was,
everything
we were
down there,
playing,
yeah.
except golf because we didn't have a golf course around us.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, it's a different. I'd say it's a different kind of era then, but it's also
Yeah.
still prevalent now because back then, sports were our child care. Mom would
They
drop
really
us
were.
off at 4 o'clock at the field for practice while she goes to the second job or teaches night school. And on the weekends, we're either doing karate or some kind of sport game that, from the weekend or whatever. And so education and sports went hand in hand because in order to play sports in a teacher household like you grew up in, my mom was also a teacher, my dad was also a teacher, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, teachers. You had to do well in the education part before you can do well in the sports part.
Our parents would get along very well then.
Yeah. So you grew up in that mindset, and then
Yeah.
it was like we didn't have video games, we didn't have a cell phone in our hand.
Nope.
I tell everybody I talk to, I said my job as a 4-year-old kid was to sit in front of the TV. That's why I can't see right now because when the TV broke, you'd be changing the channel yourself. There's no remote control back then. And then when the knob broke off, you go and get the stove knob that says hot, medium, cold, whatever. And hot was channel 10, and medium was channel 5. And so that's us growing up back then.
Wow.
Now it's like education. We gotta seem to control the mental health of kids versus the prioritizing of their actual knowledge in their government or anything else education wise.
That's where I think we're steering wrong. I'm so happy you mentioned that. We did a tribute podcast last week to Adam Coles, who we lost unfortunately, who had some mental health issues going on, and I think it's hand in hand. The girl I may or may not be dating, she works as a counselor, and she deals primarily with adolescents. And the bullying that goes on and the torment that goes on, and it's a lot of it, like you said, social media, the cell phones, like you can't go home and get away from it, unfortunately. Nope. And that's kind of what she was like. It's so frustrating. Like, I mean, I probably will never have kids, but if I had a kid, I don't know that I'd get him a cell phone until he was like 14, if that. Like,
so he graduates high school. That's what he get it to.
Well, I could, like, cell phones started becoming popular, I think, my junior year in high school, and everyone had one, and I didn't want one. And the only reason I got one my senior year in college, because I needed it for my job. Otherwise, I wouldn't have got one at all. But I completely agree with you that the mental health aspect and that piece is kind of getting thrown to the side a little bit with the kids, and they're struggling. And sports was an avenue. In my opinion, I mean, I don't know if you know my story or not, but the worst thing you can have is idle time. Idle time's the worst. So you played at 7. What position were you playing back then? Was the
everything? I was quarterback. My little league football team. I was defensive end. I was running back at some point. I was also a linebacker. But in high school, I was tight end.
They moved you around because you were a good athlete.
Well, yeah, I was throwing left hand and right hand, as a matter of fact, at some point. Yeah, because when you dribble basketball, it's baseball even. You just have a bat in your hand, you have a ball. It's all
Wow.
Always felt it. So I guess at high school I was a tight end, and then it's interesting. The last game of my high school career, coach says, "You're a senior. You can play whatever position you want." And I wanted to sack the quarterback, man. And so I had like 3 sacks that game, 4 solo tackles, a sack in the end zone for a touchdown, all kind of things like that. And that's what UConn saw. They didn't see my tight end reel. They saw my defensive end reel.
But you love defense better. Like that was
I love. Oh my god, that's my passion, is going after quarterback.
Wow.
I was never a strong kid.
Yeah.
Because I never we didn't weight rooms, we didn't have that going on.
It was
but
different
I just
back then.
was able to do things based on me drinking milk this time I was 2. So
yeah. Well, I'm sure you were a natural athlete, and then you probably have pretty good speed across the coming.
I felt like it.
Edge.
Yeah.
So I can say I probably would not have wanted to block you in practice. I think I would have avoided it. So did you also play throughout junior high? Did you, 7th and 8th grade or JV?
Well, that's interesting because
I know
when I got to high school, I didn't play my freshman year because I was still getting acclimated to baseball and trying out for things. So I didn't play my freshman year, but I think the coach called me over spring ball because for some reason they saw my big 6'2" frame walking around the hallway and wondered why this kid's not on the field. So I got a call at home saying you need to try out for the football team. And maybe the baseball coach nodded him a little bit. I don't know, but
that's amazing.
I was a freshman starter on the baseball team, so I that was unheard of too. You get JV baseball and then varsity, and so I didn't have a focus, is what I'm trying to say. I was getting letters from schools for both, but ended up going to UConn playing football. So,
but let me ask you this, because we're a little bit older now. Like my friend's kid, he had him with a personal trainer and working on basketball when he was in 4th grade. And that was his focus: basketball, 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 basketball. Mm-hmm. Now he's coming into a senior year. He's like, "Dad, it's not fun for me anymore. I don't want to play basketball." And like it's a really a legit possibility that he's not going to play a senior year. And this is a team that's gone to 2 state finals in the last couple of years. Do you think that early on kids should play a little bit of everything, and then at what age or at some point decide, okay, this is my skill set, this is what I'm talented at, maybe now I can focus on 1 sport or 2 sports?
That's a good point. It's a very good question.
Well, that's because I'm the best podcast host in the universe.
There you go. Cully, UConn. So when I was a junior in high school, my entrance applications to schools was that I wanted to be like Bo Jackson. I want to play baseball.
Would write that.
Yeah. I want to be awesome. Like Bo Jackson. I want to play football and baseball. And I understand that, there's only one Bo because he knows, but I know that I can do both as well. I mean, Deion Sanders is doing, people are doing it. So
they were back then.
Springtime baseball, fall is football. But I thought that I could do that. Got to UConn, I was like, no way, it's a spring ball too, so you can't play baseball. But Scott Burrell was my buddy, and my buddy was playing baseball and basketball. So why is it that Gino can't do it? But
I know that Laban Marsh too. Laban ran track.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the same deal. Like Laban ran track. There were some guys that were allowed to do it. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there was a way to do it where you could have done certain spring practices, but obviously still play baseball.
And look to the question, it's like you have a joy in doing something, whether it's football or ice skating, it doesn't matter. That's got to ultimately be what fills your time. You can't, in my opinion, I don't believe that you should decide or choose that young. I think you just go after if it's fun to you, go do it. Later
Right.
on it can become an avenue towards college or even a career down the road. And that only stems from what you did in your childhood early on, because that's how you get good at it. It
That's
gets
very
in your
true.
blood system. So, by all means, if they play basketball and they don't like it, they don't see themselves doing it, and it's not fun, they don't look forward to it. If you don't sleep with that ball at night before you go to bed, wake up in the morning with that ball still in your hand, that's how I judged it. I used to have a glove under my glove with the ball under my pillow, because they said that's how the glove forms the ball in there. It forms your hand. You got to put it on your head, it's gonna smush it, and that's how you become a pro baseball player.
That's great.
And the football was at the foot of my bed. My cat slept on top of that. So
That's amazing.
It's a part of your life, and if it's not,
You're right.
then that might be a little bit foreshadowing into something else happening down the road.
And I felt bad mostly because, the kid, I could see like the relief and the pressure just melt away from
There you
him.
go.
And his parents, his dad was my high school football coach.
Yeah.
And his father has just been he's just been a wreck. He's just been depressed about it. He's like, oh my God, he's not going to play. We've put so much into this, and he's just shocked and like can't believe it. And I was like, Frank, I told you this years ago, and the kid has told you this. He doesn't love basketball. Like he doesn't enjoy watching basketball games. He'll go to them, but like he doesn't particularly have like a favorite team or pay attention that much. Like he doesn't love LeBron James or anything like that. So I'm like, that's a sign right there that it may not be what you want it to be.
Right.
Of course, everyone wants their kid to get a scholarship and play Division I football, but it's not realistic. Unfortunately, it's like I think it's 1% or something out of high school kids that end up with scholarships. So you basically, if I'm understanding correctly, you didn't play as much from 7 years old, and then your freshman year was when you restarted football again because you were focusing more on baseball?
No. I played football and baseball and karate and everything else all through my childhood. But
I
that
got you.
transition from middle school to high school, that 8th grade to 9th grade, I was walking around like a little nerd, not knowing anybody. So I didn't want to get involved in sports so much. It was easy to baseball because I think my history teacher,
I got
coach
you.
or something. So I said, come on out. And so I probably wouldn't have played that either. I was just scared. So Little League football kind of keeps going through like 14 or 15. But I was, I think
14.
when I got to high school, none of it was kind of on my radar until I got the engine going with baseball that spring, and then followed up with football again my sophomore year. So, I played football all my life, baseball all my life. Those two of my kind of staples.
What position did you play in baseball?
When I was younger, I was pitching. I played shortstop.
Oh wow!
Not third base so much, but definitely first base and catcher. Catcher was my main thing.
You were they put you behind the plate.
I was behind the plate. I had two of my high school buddies were throwing in the mid 90s.
Oh my God!
I have a story. I actually took a picture of it a long time ago. My glove, my index finger was swollen inside my glove because he was hitting me so hard with that fastball.
Oh my God!
At the end of the third inning, when I tried to put my glove, it wouldn't come off. Coach had to get some oil and squirt inside my glove, and I was sweating and everything too, so it wouldn't come out. I was stuck in there. I said, "Coach, just DH me, get someone to hit for me. I'll keep my glove on, go back out there." He threw a no-hitter through 5, and then some kid hit a ground ball, or whatever. But he was smacking 95 miles an hour.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that is absolutely amazing.
I was good at. I was a catcher. People always say that pitcher is the field general of the baseball field.
No,
catcher can see everything. Catcher controls the pitches if the coach don't tell him to, but the catcher controls everything. I love that.
It's funny because I do a radio show in Worcester, and one of our co-hosts he's older, obviously, but he was trying to tell me, and I can't believe this to be true, that Willie Mays would be calling the pitches from the outfield to the catcher. He would like signal them in to the catcher. I'm like, there's no way Willie Mays is calling a baseball game. and
Well,
he's
was
like,
he left field, right?
I thought he was center, but I'm not. I'll double check that. But yeah, he's telling me that Willie Mays used to call the games for his team for when he was with the Giants, and
I can see that from a center field standpoint because I would call my pitches by where the batter is. If the batter's
okay,
crowding the plate, I'll give
yeah,
him high and tight. If my right fielder is away towards center field, you know what? I'm not throwing him an outside pitch. He's a right-hander. I'm throwing inside so he don't hit that line and he gets a triple out of it. So yeah, I mean, if I can see that and
he
you
was
have
a
that in
center
you to have that
fielder.
kind of frame of mind, I could see him
Wow.
doing that.
So when you started to get recruited, I'm sure it was probably after your junior year.
Mhm.
Were teams recruiting you and telling you that, okay, we know you want to play both sports. We're going to either consider it or let you play both sports and try to do like a bait and switch, you think? Or were they absolutely pick one or the other? Because I know they had told Laban that he could do both. And when he got there, they said, no, you got to play football. So
Back
then he
then, Steve, these recruiters and schools weren't that savvy.
had,
Only three of the schools that recruited me actually knew I played both: Wichita State,
oh,
Florida
oh my,
State, and University of Miami.
they
Everyone
didn't,
else, like Ohio State, they didn't know I was playing baseball. They
they
wanted me
had
on the
no
football field.
idea. Oh
Yeah.
my
So
God.
Wichita State was like, "Hey, we're not that football. Forget about it. But if we ever develop that, you could set us up." Florida State was ideal, of course, but I wanted UM. University of Miami was my team. I wanted to be a Hurricane so
You
bad.
wanted to go to the U.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, because they had a great baseball team,
Great
right? And
baseball.
still
Mark Light
do.
Stadium, Thursdays and Fridays. Those are the game nights, man. Then of course to be on the football, walking on that when I was recruited by University of Miami, walking out there and seeing those guys, they were like towering over me. And
Was
like,
that Dennis Erickson when he was there?
no, Butch Davis
It
and
was
Jimmy
Butch.
Johnson on the way out. Yeah.
Okay.
So Jimmy
Oh
Johnson
my
actually came to my
God.
school. There was three of us they were looking at. But yeah, those days I wanted to be both. I want because I had a love for both sports. But
That's so
only
good to
a few
hear.
schools actually recognized that I wanted to do that. So
That's so great to hear because these days I know kids are so one sport focused and
yeah.
if you play one sport, it really goes year round. There really is no off season. So you were recruited for both sports by Wichita State, Florida State. When did UConn come to the table?
Interesting story. So I wanted to play for Miami for the longest time since I was a kid. Only realized they have a baseball team halfway through my life, but then uh, I started getting letters spring of my junior year when I was playing baseball. My
Right.
baseball coach, would bring those letters to me because they come into the coach's
They
mailbox.
would come to the
I'm
coach's
sitting on the
office.
bus
Yep.
going to a game, and I'm reading these letters. Oh yeah, blah blah blah, and some of my buddies were like, "Hey, is that for baseball?" I said, "No, this is for football." You know, the Commodores. All
Vanderbilt.
these small schools, Kent State,
Yep.
but then the big school names came the following year during football season. I'm getting Ohio State, I'm getting Michigan State, big teams, USC. It became more of an idea that I could possibly do this. So the baseball letters were these really good name schools, where most of the time they're not as good as football or good football as
Well, and
well.
also baseball, they don't. I mean, I didn't think they provided full scholarships for everyone as
No, they
well.
didn't.
They
No.
you would have gotten a partial,
Yeah.
and yeah, in football probably wouldn't have given you a full if you were going to play baseball too. So you
Exactly.
probably
They,
would have
they
gotten
split
like
it up
partial.
somehow. That's how I
Yeah,
understood it. They would split it up. As a matter of fact, Florida State, something like that. They said, every college gets a certain amount of total scholarships, and we divide them up amongst the sports. And
right.
probably the best scholarships you get towards football, of course. But here's a quick story about the basketball team at UConn. When I got to UConn, and my buddies, everyone sees this, we were wearing Converse reconditioned shoes back then. No one's
Oh
gonna
my
say this,
good
but I'm saying it
God.
live on Steve Scully
Oh my God.
StreamYard. We had reconditioned shoes. And I had my own shoes that I brought from home with me. I was like, that's not standard issue. Take that off. Get back to the locker room. And I was like, you kidding me? So I came out with my little, reconditioned, spray painted or whatever Converse shoes. And but then when the basketball team made the Sweet 16, man, they used to light us up. We're going to get y'all some new shoes to get on TV time while the money started pouring into UConn, man. We're like, thank you, but no thank you. But, so that was how it was, man. We had to deal with that. But I forgot what the original question was. It just went down memory lane.
No, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. UConn came to the table. Was Jackson the coach?
Tom Jackson.
Okay, so he recruited you, and that's who you played for.
Yeah.
And did you go? Did you take all 5 of your official visits, or did you take a couple?
No. UConn, Coach Burns actually was the recruiting coach. He was assistant coach. Coach Burns came to me after signing day. Which
my God, it was after.
How this went down. So Coach Burns, forward a little bit, when I got to UConn that summer to start the school year, he had taken half the kids he recruited from Florida and went to Cincinnati. So Cincinnati was where Burns line ended up with some of the kids too. So I got there, I only knew a few people. The coach who recruited me wasn't even there. So what is this world I'm in? It's thankfully a lot of guys were from Florida down here, South Florida, actually went up there too. So I felt like I was at home because of that. We had a bond playing each other on Friday nights, and now we're together on Saturday. So that was cool.
Being a Florida guy, what made you commit to come to Storrs, Connecticut for football? Was it the the full scholarship? Was there something that you liked on the visit, the coaching staff, the team, obviously?
Somehow it was the appeal of the camaraderie that I already had down here. Like
it's amazing.
A few of the guys that I played against were there on my recruiting trip, and I thought that was really cool. So I got recruited up there. I went to the trip and everything, but they weren't on my mind to actually go. And so after that was over, I think Rice in Texas, I think some other smaller schools, maybe even University of Illinois, but those schools were still around, and I was like, I'm going to UConn. I had never seen snow before, and I was there in snow, and I was like, oh, I'm in heaven. What is this place? Let's go back here. So
that is so funny to hear, because I talked to Carl Bond and Shank and Shane Stafford, and they both, God, I think Phil Hunt too. All 3 of them echoed the same thing, that said it was the camaraderie that brought them there. It was like it made the difference. And they were also recruited by bigger programs, and it was the love of the camaraderie and the teammates that made the choice and made the choice easier for them.
Yeah.
So you obviously, going from Florida to Storrs, Connecticut, must have been a little bit of a culture shock, and seeing the 4 feet of snow we get.
Yeah. So it was more than culture shock. It was more like, why the hell did I do this? Our first game, I forget, it was at Rhode Island somewhere, and maybe it was the first game, but my first Coles game, I was a redshirt freshman, so I wasn't playing anyways. And so we had our UConn sweats. I put my UConn sweats on underneath my uniform. So I'm standing on the sideline.
You were in the sweats
on underneath my uniform. And there's a bunch of us freshmen not getting to the games. We're huddling around each other like a campfire or something. And we're rooting the team on. We're like, move closer. We're freezing. And that's when I realized, you know what? This is cool. If I can do this for 4 years, I'm great. But eventually you got to get on the field and play. So
did you end up redshirting your first year?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the design of it all back then. You automatically redshirt.
So they told you that too. They were honest about that, because that was the other thing that Shane and Carl Bond and Phil weren't thrilled about. Yeah. They kind of told them that they were going to play right away, and they pulled a switcheroo and said, we're just going to redshirt you. And it turned out okay, because I guess that was Skip Holtz's plan to do it with that entire class.
But
But
for me, Steve, I welcome that because remember, I played one full game of defense
yeah,
in
that
my
was
whole
it.
career in high school. And
So you had
so
to learn.
I was like, look, I need to learn how not to get reached as a defensive lineman, how to stop the double team, how to get to the quarterback with these 500-pound linemen in front of me. And that was all new.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, I had to turn around and block or get across or get through these tight ends. I'm lined up on the tight end. I'm like,
yeah,
that's where I should be, buddy. Let me show you how it's done. And so I really, at some point, I'm not going to say when, but at some point, I did try to approach the coach about playing tight end because that's what I wanted to do. That's my life. Score the winning touchdown some games. That was my thing, So that was my struggle internally.
So I mean, the redshirt year, you would say that you struggled defensively because it is difficult. Number
Oh, yeah.
one, I was an offensive tackle, and I always say that the biggest reason we had an advantage was the snap count, and two, as a defensive end, the recognition of the play that's coming at you has to happen so fast.
Yeah,
Okay, they're
of course.
running power, that it's an inside run, it's an outside run. I got to hold the edge. The tight end released, I got to get into my pass rush.
Mhm.
You got to decide right away, decipher it out, and then change what you're doing. So
Mhm.
that's not easy. That's not easy to
But
learn.
but it was. I think it was easier for me though because I had played that position tight end, which I was running across
Yeah,
from
so
him.
you knew. I mean,
I
you
knew what
could
he was
be
going to
a tight
do. I could
end.
tell by his feet where he's going.
Yeah,
If he's going to
yeah,
release, if he's going to try to block me, I knew. And then the tackle would kind of nudge him too. Look, you got him, or you whatever. And
yeah. All
that's
the
I could
calls are the
see
same.
that happening. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to get blocked, or
Yeah,
okay, he's going to release. I'm going to make sure I get hands on him and not let him off the ball, versus do the Olay technique and get around. I mean, I had a leg up on. I remember that
yeah,
solidly. And that
yeah.
and as the more I got better at that too, the more I settled into my spot. And so
Yeah.
back then we ran like a 50-50 defense, which is kind of weird, but
Well,
we had a
that
drop
was old
end on the
school
one
Jackson.
side and a
Yeah,
quick tackle. It was weird. So our
yeah.
4-3 was in your blood, it's all of a sudden you're playing something new, weird defense.
So
But
I mean, it was technically like a 3-4, but you're saying one defensive end was down in a 3-point stance, and then the other end was a
a
stand-up
drop
guy.
end. Yeah, he's like a
Okay,
linebacker drop end. Yeah.
okay, I got you.
And then
So did you
yeah,
play the
he
D
drops
end?
up with he's not a linebacker at that point.
Right.
But
Y-
if you're a field general on the offense side, you don't know what kind of defense that is because you're used to seeing a 4-3, but now you got five guys on the line.
Yeah, yeah. It's tough
So
to
that's
read.
what the appeal was.
It's tough to read. Did you play the stand-up guy? Did you play the down end, or did you kind of do both?
I was quick tackle, so I always was mostly on the tight end.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry. The quick tackle and the drop, depending on where it was really kind of frustrating for me because I never really picked up on it. But I was the quick tackle, so third down was my down. And second down, obviously, if you're on the whole field, you're just trying to block or whatever. But third down, I just salivate because this is my shot to get off that ball
Yeah,
and to put him on his back. But I really just, it was difficult because the plays that came in it just contradicted what the play offensively was trying to get done. I'm like,
so
why are we running this? So we should be full blast. Let's get this.
they didn't have a feel for the game, for game planning, for
I
like.
felt that defense should be offense. We
Yeah,
should be
yeah.
attacking, not on
You're
our heels getting ready for the pass to come. And that
you're
was my whole
100%
thing.
right. You're 100% right. There's so many defensives that play with that kind of
Yeah.
bend
Like Miami.
but don't break attitude. Like they're
Miami
afraid.
adopted the Houston Oilers, the Chicago Bears, the 46
Yeah,
defense. And that
yeah.
was, I love that because
Just bring it.
46, you got basically sometimes at some point 6 people on the front line, but you don't know what's coming. And definitely if you haven't, gone against that, you don't know what's coming, but it's very aggressive at all times. It's man up on the defensive backside. It's man up all the time.
Yep. Yep.
And then your linebackers are free to do what the hell they want too. Your running back stuck in the backfield because he don't know who to block. Then it's just, to me, it's the most aggressive defense ever
Yep.
was.
The
Buddy
only
Ryan,
Buddy Ryan, he developed it. The only chance you had against the bear defense, the true bear, was to spread them out.
Yep.
And then because they would give away kind of what they were doing by how they would align to your spread.
Mm-hmm.
So you could kind of pick up and know who was coming and who wasn't. But yeah, you're absolutely right. After your redshirt year, how did things go from there? Because you had 4 years. You were playing defensive end, and you were primarily second, third down guy. They'd put you in really for pass rush situations and try to use you that way.
Yeah, I sucked at blocking. I sucked at taking double teams.
Listen, man, that's why we double team you. That's why we do it. We need 2 guys. We can't block you with 1 guy.
I wanted to go back to my freshman year when I was as a sophomore, because that way I could say, I don't got to worry about nothing. But you got to fight for your right to be on the field. But so those next years were formative still, because I felt like, okay, I'm going against a lot of people that have been doing kind of this specific position all their whole lives, and I'm still learning what I'm doing right now. However, I never lost sight of the fact that I was better than the guy in front of me. Never.
You always had that confidence.
Always thought, no matter who it was, especially, we had a color shirt system. So if you were blue shirt on offense, you're starting, and black shirt on defense, you're starting, and then red and so I was a red shirt, actually literally a red shirt. But I was going against blue shirts as on the offense.
Yeah.
And I never in my mind, even the toughest offensive lineman I ever faced was Lyndon Johnson.
You played against Lyndon. Wow.
Yeah. That was my he was our offensive captain. He was the guard.
Oh my God.
Even when I was lined up inside as a 1 technique, and he was the guard next, I never thought that I couldn't get around him. Somehow, some way, I was quicker. I was going to be quicker. But if you ask me to bull rush, nah. I'll give you the business a few seconds, and I'll let go because he's going to kick my butt.
So you developed like a good quick swim or a quick rip off the ball. That's what you would use.
I had something specific, and I'll say it live here on your.
You're going to give it away.
Yeah, my uncle. That freshman year, after that year was over with, I came down and trained with my uncle in West Palm Beach, and he had a gym, but he was also quite the man in his heyday. He was recruited by the Dolphins, actually. So big dude, one of my idols. But he taught me. He said, "Look, if you're going to be a defensive lineman, you're going to learn the thumb." I was like, "What's a thumb?" He said, "Take this hand right there. You ball it up. You put that knuckle right there, and when you're coming across that guy, you put it in his gut and you keep going." Yeah. I was like, "What?"
It works, man. I've had it done to me.
So I'm like, okay, so how does this work then? When he said, "Don't even worry about that. You just cook that thumb and you go." So I'm like, "All right, look, Uncle, I'll try it, but did it one time only, because I think I hit one of the linemen in the gut and he screamed and he was like throwing his helmet, and I don't remember who it was, but I think it was on the inside. I was either a 3 or a 1. Yeah, and for some reason, I had an instinct to not do that anymore, so I wasn't good with on the inside, but on the outside I could swim and do all kinds of other stuff.
So you were playing some 3 technique. You were playing the shade on the nose, and sometimes. then they bumped you out.
I was on short yardage distance.
Okay,
we call it tiger or something, whatever. But so we got 6 linemen. I'm usually down the middle on a shade on a center, left or right. And that's when I just try to clog the hole. But I wasn't trying to clog the hole. I was trying to get in the backfield.
You were trying to penetrate.
I got a sack against Yale as a 1 because I snuck through the center guard and grabbed his foot before he can get back to his drop.
What? Wow! That's really quick getting in.
That was my first sack, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
What? I'm sorry, I don't know this. Like, what was your size? How big were you? How big were you?
Here's a quick one. I got to UConn. I was 230 pounds, 6'3". And that was June.
Yeah.
By August, I was 269.
Did you stay there for the summer? Did you go up early?
Yeah, because we had a program called CAP. the CAP
Okay.
program got us into summer school, got our classes
Yep.
going, and then we were able
Oh,
to
that's
train,
huge.
so-called trade over the summer. But Paul Duckworth, my roommate, that's the man.
That's
Duck.
who you roomed with?
Yeah, that's my roommate.
Wow.
So me and Duck, Duck's family would come up on the weekends.
Yeah.
And Duck, if you're looking at this is why I'm big today, because y'all's family. But he used to bring up, Duck's dad used to bring up these cocoa bread with beef patties, like dozens of them, and then stewed peas and rice and all this Jamaican food. And I love it. Oh my God. But when you sat there and ate that stuff, I gained 30 pounds, 40 pounds over the summer.
Yeah.
And we
That's
weren't running
huge.
as much either, but that's food, man. That was the best food.
Oh, I
Oh
know.
my goodness. I gained so much weight, but beef, we weren't fat.
No.
Beef.
No.
That's how I gained the weight.
It was different back then. It was harder back then.
Man.
Well, because you guys, I mean, it's not like now, like we some guys lived in dorms. They built the hilltop apartments. You guys,
I lived in Hilltop.
so you did stay
Not
in
the
the
apartments,
dorm.
Hilltop, Ellsworth.
Yeah, you still okay.
Yeah.
So you
That's
didn't
my
go to
dog,
Carriage
man.
House.
That's my ride or die. Duck and his family, they were responsible for getting me through college, through school. I mean,
That's awesome.
As a second father, his father was there for us. His family.
Well,
I was 1,200 miles away from home.
Yeah, they can't come to games. Yeah,
no, we can't. I couldn't go. I had no money. You couldn't go.
Sorry.
Here's our high school experience. We didn't have a subway on campus. We had a subway truck down in the parking lot by the armory. That was our fast food for the entire summer. Subway truck.
I know. You would have to drive to. I remember the closest drive-through was like Willimantic. You'd have to go. There was like a Taco Bell in Willimantic that we used to go to.
That's it.
But you're 100% right. Okay, so you didn't stay in Carriage House or Celeron. You were in Ellsworth.
Later on, we went to Carriage House. Everybody went to Carriage House. After
right.
time in the dorms.
Okay, so you did. As a freshman, sophomore, you had to stay in the dorms, and then you moved over.
I don't think Coach would let us until we got to the upperclassmen level.
Oh, okay. Because I mean, you're stuck in the dorms. The dining hall had limited hours.
Yeah.
The food wasn't great.
Yeah.
And at least at Carriage House in Celeron, I remember I lived off the Foreman grill. I mean, we got the Foreman grill, and that's what we'd grill chicken breasts or fish or burgers every night. I know, right? It was huge. If we didn't have the Foreman grill and protein shakes, and I had a friend, I won't say his name, but he would scam GNC. Well, and they bought. Either the people that worked there were morons, but they bought it every time because he'd go to the same GNC at the mall, and he'd buy the creatine, and he'd use it, and then when it got down to like maybe a tenth, he'd fill it up with sugar to about like a quarter or like half. Yeah. And then he'd bring it back and say, "Oh, this is upsetting my stomach. Can I exchange it?" They would never give him his money back, but they'd let him exchange it. So he'd just get a different type of creatine.
That's funny.
But like, this is what he did for 4 years. You're not picking up, and he wasn't like the smartest guy, like to go at different times where there's different employees. Like the same people are seeing him. He's coming in with it, and he's like, "Oh, can I exchange it?" So I mean, the UConn Yale, when you played them, that was a big rivalry game, right?
Huge rivalry.
It was huge. Yeah, it was.
And if we lost, oh my goodness.
Oh, I heard.
If we lost against Yale, that was like it's. You know what that's like? That's like the Florida Panthers going 3-0 over the Oilers, and now they're tied up. And if they lose that game 7, that's how us losing to Yale would have been like. Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
That's like the coach of the 80 Olympics team saying to his crew after they just beat up on Russia, "Now, if you go and play this next team in the final round who are dumps, you lose this, you'll take it to your grave. Don't lose this chump game after beating the best team in the world. Can't do it." That's how losing to Yale was. If we lost to Yale when I was there.
That
But
was the Mike Eruzione. That was the team that won the gold
yep,
medal. I know what
yep.
you're talking about. Okay. No, because Shank told me a story when he was there. They lost to Yale,
Oh my God.
and I believe he said that after they got off the bus, they practiced.
Oh
They
my
made them
God.
practice
Yeah,
after they lost to Yale.
keep until the sun comes
They
up.
were pissed. They were pissed. So it's a
Can't
good
lose to
thing you never
Yale.
lost to Yale. So just tell me, like, some of your memories from UConn, if you remember any specific performances, like you mentioned that the sack that you had from the goal line situation. Any other games that stand out throughout your career there?
Six overtimes against Villanova.
Oh,
That's
I heard about
memorable.
that. That was like
Six
one of the
overtimes.
longest games ever.
Yeah, we all kept thinking, let's do this for Howie Long. We got to beat Howie Long, and finally we won that thing. I forget who the running back was. Got in the end zone because it was like a Kansas
Was that when
tiebreaker.
they had? Was that when they had Westbrook, or was that before Westbrook?
Kevin Wesley.
Okay, Wesley.
Kevin Wesley.
Yes.
Oh, you mean Westbrook playing for Villanova?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I think it may have been after, but yeah.
Yeah, but it was there. Is that Villanova? And we I mean, and I think they had turf. It was a turf field. But I remember in halftime, the shoes that I was wearing were sucky turf shoes. And I had my tennis shoes, my Nike
Oh, they
sneakers
were
on.
awful. The
I
old school
put those.
AstroTurf.
Yeah, it's so stupid. I put my sneakers on, and I think Duck was on the left side because he was in the defensive end also, but we called him on third down. So Duck was on the left side. I was on the right. They called boundary cowboy, and boundary cowboy meant
The corner would blitz, right?
well, yeah, we're on the boundary, and so the cowboy is Duck because he's on the left. He's in the boundary, and I'm on the right hand side of the field. So I got the field to my side. So I'm rushing,
Yeah.
but he's got the clearest, because he's a right hand quarterback, number one. So the quarterback can see him coming, but I got the blind side, and so I lunged at the quarterback and I missed him. Then he saw me, he turned and saw me lunging, and then Duck caught him in the back and knocked him out.
Lit him out.
And we were like, we watched that over and over in the tape. You get him? No, I got a boom. You get him? No, I got a boom. And that was to me, that was my best bro moment with Duck because we always said in the locker room, if you don't get him, I will.
Yeah.
And that was, to me, that was just like, I'll never forget things like that. 6 overtimes. We got a quarterback sacked, which got the game, I think, to overtime. I don't know if that was how it got there. I don't remember.
That was a huge play.
But that's one of my most memorable things about that. About the
game. Your career at UConn. I mean, you had a good time. You were happy with the education, and I mean, everything went well. I mean, were you happy with your decision?
I will never regret the decision to go into UConn. Now, if I were to go back to high school, I'd do a lot of things differently.
We all say that. If I knew then what I know now, obviously.
Yeah, because we didn't have a gym like the high schools have now,
no.
So I wasn't working out. I didn't know to work out. Besides that, I was a baseball player, so my job wasn't to get buff. So when I came home for Thanksgiving, and I was like 40 pounds heavier, and they're like, "Who is this guy?" And what are you doing with my son? So I fought football for becoming a fat guy. But I think that hindsight is 2020, except in the year 2020. But I think that you live and you learn, you make decisions, and the best thing you can do is go with them and water stamp them as a good one. You don't want to regret decisions because they're done. You want to stand by them and then say, the next time I do it this way.
So did you think overall that you were, I mean, you mentioned going back, would you say or admit that you believed you were a better baseball player than football player? Is that how you felt, how you feel or feel now or felt then?
I think, I mean, I was hitting 419 in my
and against great competition down there.
My senior year, yeah, we had some guys who were throwing heat. I mean, Every once in a while, you get someone throwing grapefruits, but everyone's throwing heat. And I think, um, I wouldn't say I was better at football than baseball, or either vice versa. I would just say that I got to try something different pretty professionally as a college football player. And I say that
Yeah.
professionally because you learn techniques, you learn the game, you're going against real competition versus, you're playing what we call Little League football. It's called Pop Warner everywhere else, but here it's Little League football.
Right.
You're going against kids who, their moms aren't even there in the stands. They're just throwing out there because they got to do something, for the night.
Right.
But you get better because people aren't as good next to you. And then you get matched up with people who are just as good as you when you're in college and pros.
You do.
And
You
I think
do.
baseball, I never had a chance to do that. I never had a chance to play college baseball and see just how good I was. So that's why I can't say I was, better at either one of them.
But I mean, do you think that you would have had a chance? Because I know that like some guys get drafted out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you were good enough that you could have gotten drafted out of high school had you pursued it or exclusively played baseball or
I don't think,
got an agent, something like that?
well, when you're an ice cube and you're in a cup with other ice cubes, it's hard to figure out who the best ice cube is. And I'm saying that because we're down here in South Florida. There's a camp for recruiters to learn how to recruit.
Yeah.
And so there's so many good real high school programs down here. There's travel leagues all over the state.
Yeah.
So I would say I was average in the good field. You know what I'm saying? I was one of the good guys. I didn't excel in that good field. I was an average in the good field.
I got you.
Because of that, I don't think I can say I was really good. There were some guys that just hit bombs. No matter if you throw him a high tight curveball, you throw him a knuckler, he's putting it in the stand. Some of these guys, and I'm the catcher, so I know what their weaknesses are.
Yeah.
But I still throw them high and tight. They managed to pull that left foot and still put it out of the park.
And pull it.
Yeah, not going with the pitch if I'm going left. It's just for some reason they're like me out there. You're born doing certain things, and the coaches don't help them.
No,
the coaches don't help these guys.
I know they
I'm
don't.
saying that because they don't have the ability to.
Their teachers
it's in them by that time.
Yeah.
They know what their step is. They know what their hip rotation. They know all that stuff without even being told that's what it is.
Right.
And so I think that had I gone somewhere to some small school, I'd have been great.
Yeah.
As a baseball player.
Yeah.
But if I went to the University of Miami and played, I'd been one of the other guys because I never,
I
hope that explains it.
Yeah, I got you. What did you end up majoring at UConn?
So I started off as a computer science major, and here's a kind of gray area. I couldn't understand my professors. I couldn't understand them. Straight up. I took my Q test in high school. Q test was to get you in to the major, and I missed one on the whole test, so I was solid with that. But I got here, man, and I'm taking calculus, and I couldn't understand what my professor was saying.
No, I know.
He's Asian, and that's not a
thick accents. No,
just a fact that he was saying this one term. I actually had office hours with him to try to figure out what he was saying. I said, "Look, he keeps saying sigma. What is a sigma?" And he says he drew the sigma symbol. I said, "Sigma. You're saying sigma." At that point, I knew that everything else I thought I was learning this class.
I was completely wrong.
It was right before add drop, and I dropped the class right there.
Okay.
And I went back to Bev. Bev Sims was our
Bev's
counselor.
The best, yeah.
Bev Sims and Bev, forget computer science. I haven't even taken a computer class yet. I can't get through the actual mathematics part of it. I said, Bev, and then my other class, like the same thing. So I said, give me something else, Bev. What you got? Well, maybe business is good. So I started taking business classes.
You do better.
They're all 8 o'clock in the morning, Bev. I can't get up 8 o'clock in the morning. So she says, you know what, Gino? Your mom is Colombian. Your dad's African American. You're in New England. You're 1,500 miles away from home. I think you're having homesickness and issues. Take sociology on. Then you can talk about those issues in class.
That's what I took. Yes.
You know what? If I ever get to talk to Bev, I will hug her as tightly as I can. I say, Bev, you changed my life.
I learned so much from
Changed my life.
Soch, and they used to joke about it and say, what's your major? Graduation, if they
Mm-hmm.
threw you in sociology.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned so much from sociology.
Mm-hmm.
It was the sociology of business, the sociology of family. I think there
Yeah.
was one I took sociology of prison life, and you really learn about people. And for me, like, it was more psychological, like where
Mm-hmm.
you learn how people think in these areas. And I believe that helps you along the way, because you have the ability with a social degree. I mean, you could, if you want to actually teach, or if you want to work and be a social worker, you can.
There's so many different areas to go into. So many
But
things.
I think it helps you read people, like
Yeah.
you know what type of
Tremendously.
personality they have, and you kind of know where you're going with them. I do sales, so within like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I kind of know what I have.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of know where I have to go. And then I
Mm-hmm.
kind of know if it's going to work out or not.
Yeah.
So if it's not going to work out, I'm not, I realize that I can talk for 30 minutes or an hour. I'm still getting a no. I won't waste my time, and I'll try
Yeah.
moving on. But that's kind of what I got from it. It was
Yeah.
so interesting to learn about, the family dynamics. And it
Mm-hmm.
was so interesting to learn about the workplace
Yeah.
and the workplace dynamics.
But
So is that
to
what
a kid like me who's homesick and struggling to figure out who he is,
yeah.
that was therapy for me. So those
Yeah.
years in the major was there. There was that either that or HDFR, and
That was the
HDFR
other
was
one.
it. But
HDFR was
sociology, I was in a social psych minor. I was in a counseling minor. I was doing all this other stuff too, and it just seemed to like that baseball in the glove. It kind of fit. You know what I'm saying?
right.
It just fit right in there. And I started to have an interest in going to class because a lot of those classes, man, were at 6 o'clock in the was it Arjona, the big
The big hall.
yeah.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm
They
sitting
were.
there, and then the follow up with the lab was with a group of 30 women, and I'm two guys in there, and they're talking
Yeah.
about issues, and they'll turn out it's a male issue. Everyone turns and looks at us. What do you think? And you better not whatever. I'm like, well, ease up. So I learned not only about myself, but how to interact, love, and respect someone that wears a different shoe than me. I learned how to
Right.
put my foot in that shoe and wear it. And when you
Right.
can do that as a person, you're so much better. And I think the world needs to invest in other shoes.
And
Somehow, some way, if we can figure out how to put every foot in a different shoe just for a day, they can get out of that bubble, get out of that whatever kind of world they're in that doesn't involve anybody else, and start loving and respecting everybody else because now they can understand a little bit more about them.
you're 100% correct, because I always say the same thing. I think it's about perspective,
Yeah.
and it's about people, when you talk to them, being objective, and trying to see their point of view and understand it. And I've been in, social situations or conversations where, okay, I completely understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I'm being respectful, and I hear what you say. I understand what you're trying to say. And I understand what you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And you're absolutely right. If you take the time to put the shoe on the other foot, and you see where that other person is coming from, that makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
So talk to me a little bit about after graduation. Did you keep on with school? Did you go right to work?
What did I do? I think I hung around UConn a little while.
Because you had a fifth
Um,
year. Yep.
yeah,
And
yeah. I wanted to. I mean, I was living off campus. It was kind of cool.
yep.
So it became like a kind of thing to keep living on campus and see if you can land a job or something or some kind of career. And I think I stayed around for a bit, but then I came back home.
Yep.
And then I started. I believe I worked for the State Department of Labor on a quick stint there. Then
Oh,
I worked
wow.
as a teacher and taught high school after that.
Okay, so
And so
that's
I was
why.
a defensive coordinator at my high school.
Oh, so you were a coach. You
So
were
I ended
coaching
up
a
coaching.
teacher. I got
But
you.
yeah, so that was quick, but that was like a couple of years. Then I went back to UConn, back to college, and I wanted to get my master's degree
Oh, good.
in social psych. And I think there was a program called the Heart Program, and it was I think coming to an end because they lost funding. But I didn't
Yeah.
know that before I got there. So I quit my job, moved everything up to an apartment, and started, going back to classes. They said the program is no longer in existence. I said, so
So
what
you
do I
had
do?
to switch over. Well, you had to use those credits and switch over to like a
Something else,
MBA or something
which
else.
I
Yeah.
never did.
I don't
So,
blame you. I mean, unless you're going to run a business or own a business, MBAs you don't necessarily need.
yeah.
But what did you end up?
I got a job working for the State Department of Higher Education in Hartford. That was my first awesome job. I
No, I mean,
was
what did you get your master's in?
Well, I never got the master's. I had
Oh,
like
you
180
ended up
credits.
leaving. I
I
got you.
had so many credits.
You
Yeah.
had 108
Because
credits.
of all we
Oh
had
my
student hours
God.
at the infirmary. We had Wyndham Hospital. We have all the
Yep.
stuff that we're doing with internships and all this credit, all these classes we took. But
Oh
I
my
never
God.
got applied to an actual master's degree. So my
So
transcript had hours and hours and hours of stuff in different kind of
yeah, I
classes.
mean, so you're like, I think it's 120. So you're like 18 credits away from having a master's. But you
Yeah.
basically have your master's.
Yeah.
So you close enough for me. So you worked there, and then you ended up coming back to Florida eventually.
Yeah. So what happened there is I worked for the State Department of Higher Education in Hartford, and we ended up coming back home to Florida because my parents weren't doing too well at the time.
Right.
So I felt, I'm all
You're
this
obligated to
miles
take.
away. I'm coming back home. So I did.
Yeah.
And I landed a job with Alonzo Mourning in Miami. I worked for Alonzo Mourning as he had Alonzo Mourning Charities. And there was a little building called the Overtown Youth Center. It was an after school program for our standardized testing in Florida. It's called the FCAT. And the FCAT was destroying our state and our youth and our school
I
systems.
know, but
Um,
those tests, it's all
yeah,
about knowing
that's
how
what
to
they end
take
up
the
doing. They
test.
end up taking and learning the test, and
You
which
have to teach the test. It's
kind of
so
stupid.
stupid. Yeah.
So I was in charge of that after school education program, and Alonzo was getting us funding for that. And then right in the middle of that, I got called to work in Broward County for the Broward County Supervisor of Elections Office.
So
And
that's how you got into politics.
that's what, the elections process, we call it,
The
because
election
politics
I'm
is
sorry.
partisan. So my job was the voter education director for the county.
I
And
got
so
you.
what I
Okay.
do was educate 1.2 million voters, registered voters, on the elections process with a staff of 4. So that's why you see that background behind me, because it's daunting.
You're like
It's
climbing Mount Everest with 100 pounds
yeah,
tied to you.
yeah. Yeah.
That's like
It
saying,
is.
go climb Everest. Here's a backpack with 100 pounds on it.
So
Have
you
at
so
it.
you see how crazy that is.
Oh my
When you have
God.
a staff of 4, and yourself included, and you have over 1 million people in a county who are transient. By that means,
They are.
I
I
mean
know.
that it's a tourism county. People are
Yeah.
coming and going all the time. So there's no stamp of approval on your homestead. You're not there for more than 3 years, anyways. So you gotta continuously be trying to educate new people coming to the county on the voter registration and education process. It's not gonna happen. We did some good things, some great things in the 20
I'm
years
sure
I
you
was
did.
there. 20 years.
20
But
years. God bless you.
yeah, so that's where I
That's a ton of work.
landed my hat. But when you're working for the government, I've had about 30 years at this point now in the government realm. You learn one solid fact that you will never be able to serve everyone you're supposed to serve,
You can't.
because certain things are not a priority.
They're
And
not.
that's my challenge. If I
No.
can, through this mobile application, if I can get the country to prioritize nonpartisan voter education, and that means
Yeah.
that in the past
I know.
247 years, that's how old our
Yeah.
country is, we
I
have
know.
never prioritized it. We never said, you
No,
know
we
what?
haven't.
We need to make sure civics is in all our schools. We need to make sure that people know who their congressman is. We need to make sure people know how to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Things like that are so basic. It's so bad, Steve, that people I talk to on a daily basis don't
No,
know what
you
the
know,
word nonpartisan means.
I know, I
And
know,
that's the root. So
I
what
know.
we're trying to do is make sure that we at least start with that and create a safe space for people that can come and find out the process of elections, not who to vote for, because that's partisan. The process meaning how to vote, where to vote, and when to vote. And if we
Okay.
stick to that, that's what people, no matter what side you're on, if you're not even on a side, you need to know those basic fundamentals of elections. And if you do that, you can become a more educated electorate as a whole. And that's what we're trying to do.
So you're not necessarily pushing for either candidate.
No,
You're
no,
trying to get people, okay, this is how you get registered. This is what you do. This is
right.
how you vote. Because
Exactly.
we're not getting the voter turnout that we should be getting in
Exactly.
Broward County.
On the
And
other side of that, Steve, and I'm
yeah,
sorry to interrupt you, but other side of that is the candidate side. And
yeah,
so it's a
yes,
candidate management system on the
yes.
app what we're creating. And here's why.
Wow.
Because candidates are voters too. And
They are.
so
They all
when
vote.
we thought about this process, we said, you know what, there's two things that everybody wants. Two things. Everybody wants better candidates. Even candidates want to be better because that's their whole job is to be the best and then get elected. So everyone wants better candidates. And number two, everyone deserves better information. Better information.
They are.
If
Yeah.
we stand on those two pillars, stand on the fact that that's what everyone needs to have right now, then we'll create that. If we can create that, a place where everybody can go, then the 16-year-old girl that I talked to that says that she can't go home at the dinner table and talk about who she wants to vote for because she'll create a civil war at the dinner table.
That's what it turns into.
We cannot have that anymore. We got to have a safe space. And that's what this is. You can create a profile as a voter, you can create a profile as a candidate, and the two of y'all can have a conversation. It can be in a private room. You can actually go on their calendar and get on their office hours and say, hey, we're going to do a video call with my administrator, whoever. But it's a communication that's broken right now. Call your
It
senator right
is.
now when we hang up, see if you can get a hold of them.
I could call
Can't.
for a month. Like
Exactly.
Chuck Schumer's not taking my call. Chuck
Right.
Schumer's not taking my call in New York.
So imagine if they could set office hours for a whole entire sorority to meet on a Zoom call with them.
Now,
Imagine if you're sitting in line somewhere and say, hey, I'm at the DMV. Look at here's a snapshot and be able to send it to him. Imagine you can do that and get
yeah,
a response from him the next minute. That's
I mean,
something that will change the face of
wow.
education and elections process.
Because from I'm limited with my knowledge about politics and voting and elections. From what my friends have told me, that the majority of these politicians, they'll work like 6 hours or 5 hours out of a day, and then the rest of the day is spent they're on the phone fundraising. Like
Yes,
that's
there's the
just
point. There's the
which I
point. And
couldn't I was like shocked to hear this. I'm like, they're
yeah,
spending 4
it's
hours
actually
fundraising?
it's 80% of their time is spent fundraising and 20% getting to know the people that are going to supposedly
Because
vote for them.
so I was
Imagine you
emailed.
can
Yeah.
flip that.
Yeah.
Imagine you can turn that around where, hey, I got 1 million people in Broward County. Let me go try to find those people and tell them what my agenda is. Let me tell them what
Exactly.
I've been doing my whole entire life of 50 years. Let me tell them
Exactly.
why I'm the best candidate instead of, hey, give me some money for my campaign.
Yeah.
Press
So
that button right there.
yeah.
Give me some money. I'm
So
gonna
I
knock
can
on
run
your
some more
door for
ads.
3 hours. It's the system is flawed. By that I mean, in order to get on TV and the radio, you got to raise millions of dollars. And if you're the teacher that's retired after 30 years of teaching, and now you want to run for city council, you can't do that and stay on the ballot more than 6 months because guess what? The other guy just
He's
moved
gonna
here from somewhere else, and he's got money behind him, and he's going to be on TV and radio.
he's
He's
gonna
going to get the
outfund me,
votes.
man.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Mrs. Smith, but you're not going to be a candidate more than 6 months. How many
Right.
times we got to tell good people that? How many times we can say,
Amazing.
don't even bother getting the race because you won't win because you don't have any money. You're going to spend all your time trying to raise it. And then you'll be pathetically pissed off and you'll say, you
Yep.
know what? To heck with this. That's what
Um,
happens.
I just out of curiosity, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but like, does someone like just Ron DeSantis, does he support this? Does he support something like this?
So the idea is that candidates and the whole qualifying process is all public record.
It
And
is.
so
Yep.
when we created a profile process, but our app will have every single qualified candidate on there, regardless if they endorse it or not. So the premise is that if I'm a voter, I want to know who's on my ballot. I want
Okay.
to see my sample ballot. When you create a profile, that will show up in your profile. You'll see all
Oh,
the
okay.
actual candidates that in your race on your ballot.
For every election that's
Every
taking
election.
place in the county.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, first of all, how long did it take to create this app?
Well, we're still creating it. We actually, our
You-
test site is up and running now. It's a
Your
test site.
test site's up
So
and running.
yeah, that's
Okay.
our beta. So we're trying to make sure that we have it's going to be a Cadillac, but right now it's just a little old go-kart with 4 wheels, an engine, steering wheel.
But it's a start.
It's a start.
It's a
Yeah.
start.
So
And
what we're trying to do on there, the most important parts about that is the candidates get on there and then the voters can see that. We want a voter education toolbox for voters. And that
which
toolbox is
they
you
need.
have direct line, you click a button and you'll see you able to find out your voter registration status.
Right.
Put your information on there, see if you're registered to vote. And soon enough, you'll be able to see your sample ballot. Soon enough, you'll be able to actually click on these people and find out what's going on with them, who this candidate is. What's this Bill Smith guy? Click on that, boom. Oh, I see, blah, blah, blah. That's a toolbox. That gives you information
Yeah.
about your actual election because everyone has
That's
a different election.
huge.
That's all we're trying to do
huge.
right off the bat. But down the road, when we get our funding, hint, advertise, we need cash. We're trying to make sure the features we add creates a ecosystem for elections. That means everyone that's a part of an elections process, and there's a lot of parts. We have the nonprofit organizations that push things. We have the immigration attorneys that are very much a part of it. We have lobbyists who are also a part of it. We have people that want to support candidates. Like candidates now need people to print palm cards, people to print T-shirts, people to make signs. So we have a resource group for candidates. Remember, they want to manage their whole campaign in there. They're going to go to that site and find the information they need. So they need to find T-shirts. Boom, call that company. They'll give you a discount because you're calling them and you're on the app.
I mean, that's just such an incredible idea. Did you develop this kind of on your own? You worked in education, so you probably saw that, and just being around people, in my opinion, unfortunately, most of us are ignorant to our candidates in the election process.
But that's not your fault, Steve. And
it's kind of my fault, but
no,
yeah.
well, the reason why I say that, and when I talk to folks, I just talked to a big group last week, a big group of students getting just graduated in summer classes now for master's program. But I let them know that don't beat yourself up because you're not on the politics train. Don't beat yourself up because you don't know who your congressman is. Don't beat yourself up because when I was growing up, we had a little cartoon called Schoolhouse Rock, and that taught us how to create a bill. And
I
at
remember
least we had that. You guys don't have that.
Yeah.
Well, our career days, even back then, we know who the police officer is. We know the fireman comes in. We know who AT&T guys. They got actually was Bell South back there. We know telephone. We see telephone booths everywhere. We don't know what a voting booth looks like.
No,
never until you walk your butt into the booth. So it was never prioritized, and that's my point. If you prioritize something, you'll give it your attention. You'll give it your resources.
Right.
In the 20 years I was at the elections office, we did some great things. We did some beautiful things. We had a program called High School Voter Registration Drive, and every high school in the county, 80 high schools, we had a week-long period of voter registration. We would register 10,000 actually new students every year. And then we said, you know what? They're just registering to vote now. Let's get them to the polls. So a couple of years later, we had field trips to the polls. We actually got school buses, and we had first-time registered voters that turned 18, and we actually got them driven to the polling places.
That's so important.
For the first time, your first act as an adult, the important one, important act. Can you imagine it doing with other peers and having that solitude, having that camaraderie? Who are you going to vote for? You're on a bus. It's like this anxious thing. You get there, and here's what really changed my mind about the process and gave me hope. The first time we did it, we had it was at a library, and there was a line of people down the road, around the building even, waiting to get in. That bus pulled up. Those kids got off of there. and we announced what was happening, people stepped aside and let those kids go.
Let
It was
them
like
go.
40 kids, and they got in there and they voted.
That's
Steve, they
really
came off that bus, they voted within an hour, and they came out of that site. Applause, clapping.
That
People
must have
the
been
most
so
beautiful
rewarding
thing
for you.
as an adult to
Yeah.
see, aside from the rhinos being saved in Africa. I'm just saying.
No, I mean that
to
must.
do that and to be a part of that process. And that's when we looked at each other, the superintendent of schools, all of our election staff, and we said, you know what? This is why we're coming to work, because we were able to prioritize something. So we did beautiful things.
That's really rewarding for you.
But I also saw some things that were less than stellar. Some
Yeah.
things that needed changing, needed our direction, but we couldn't wipe those out without attention and resources, both are things we never got.
Right.
And that's when my entrepreneurial spirit kicked in. I realized that, you know what, hey, everyone's got one of these things in their hands. Everyone's got a cell phone. They can be demonized weapons, or they can be great tools.
Yes.
Let's put the tool in everybody's hand about elections process. And that's when it started to cultivate as an idea.
God, that's amazing. I mean, the creativity you had to do this, and finally putting it into action. When do you, if you can say, when is there a time frame when you would expect to launch full time? Will it be before November, or
Yeah.
do you think? Oh, good.
So we're the test
Right
site
there.
is going right now. We actually are getting candidates now to log in and create profiles.
It's huge.
As of next month, we want to start advertising that test site. So not a soft launch, just a beta launch. And we'll get feedback and twerk and tweak. But that whole period is our investor period. So we're trying to raise monies right now.
You got to raise capital. Yeah.
Because, a test site, it's a website right now. It's the test site. So we're trying to turn it into a full-fledged app. And August 20th is our first election down here, the primary. So I want the test site to be really going in, by August and everyone using it. That way, that results will show a need for this app to be given attention to, raise some funds for, and fully developed within the next month for November. That's the goal.
Let me ask you just two questions. Number one, is this an app that you would plan on trying to use for the entire country at some point? Or is it going to be? Yeah. Okay.
Democracy 2.0.
That makes perfect sense. So
I went to all the entrepreneur classes. I had to figure out how to be a CEO. And I wanted to change the world off the bat. Hey, we're taking this all over the world. They said, you know what? Go ahead, press the button. How long is it going to take? I have no idea. So I said, you know what you need to do as an entrepreneur? You have to get to what's called a SOM, a service obtainable market. There's the total addressable, which is the country and the world. But as granular as possible, come down to who you're going to serve first. And I said, you know what? I want to talk to those first-time registered voters. I want to let them know there is a place for them. There's a process for them. Here it is. I want to talk to those candidates who tried it once, realize there's no way I'm going to do this, or the first-time candidates who just want to step into the game. I want to help them. So if I can just really address that small cohort of people first and establish that need, that's what we'll do. So Broward County, Palm Beach County, and Miami-Dade, that's what we call South Florida.
Right.
That South Florida area is how I'm rolling this out first. And we're doing that with student governments. We've got 5 major colleges down here we're dealing with first. So that's our target market. And I won't say target market because that's a business thing. Our cohort of incorporation, I'll call it.
But I mean, the younger generation is a little more tech savvy and would probably be more inclined to use this. Yeah. I know you mentioned you had 4 people working for you at the other job. How much do you have a staff now with you? Yeah. Okay.
We have a C-suite team, which is the chief executive officer, myself, a COO, which is Rosanna, a CXO, which is a user experience officer, and that's the guy who would make sure when you touch a button on the phone, it goes to where the user wants it or expects it to go.
Correct.
I've also got an IT development guy. His name is Abraham. Abraham, isn't that great? He's doing all the back end work with the technology. And I've got another young lady, actually a dear friend of mine from UConn. She's up there in Connecticut right now. But these are all fractional positions, of course. They got their full-time jobs and careers.
Right. They're
Um,
doing this because they believe in it and they
yeah,
believe in you and what you're
and
trying to do
yeah,
and the
absolutely in the
importance of
process.
this
Yeah.
and the
So
importance of this.
once we get it more of a legitimate business and the app made and monetized, we talked about what their fraction will turn into, and full time down the road, of course, that's the goal. But I want to talk about the students first, Steve, because I got students
Please
involved in
do,
this too.
because that's huge that you got them involved because
Yeah.
that's
So
where I think there's a disconnect. So I
yeah,
think they need that.
wholeheartedly. And
Yeah.
so when I talk in my pitch competitions, they ask me why I'm doing this. What's my why? And I say because, and stay with me, audience. I say our youth, the youth of today, they have the most to lose in a deteriorating
They
economy,
do. They
and we
do.
have the most to gain by us fixing it now. And that's and if I haven't grabbed you then let me tell you this, because student governments right now, if you turn on television, you see tent cities on campuses. I'm
Yeah,
going to tell
you
you
do.
why we have that scenario. It's not because kids feel a certain way left or right, but it's because of the exclusionary process that we have
Right.
going on right now in our country. And that means
Right.
you got millennials, Gen Y, Gen Z, you grouped all these people. But one thing that I'll say I did really good when I worked at the elections office, we had this thing called Neighborhood Partnership Committee. And that committee met monthly. It could be a doctor, a lawyer, it could be a teacher, a parent. It could be anybody that has an interest in elections, which is anybody.
Right.
And we met for months and months. And one thing was always consistent. The youth, they're so just disconnected. So I said, you know what? Maybe because we're not talking with them. From
Yeah,
now on, we
we're
will not
not.
have another meeting unless one representation of that so-called group of students, group of people is here. We can't evolve, we can't go forward with discussions without involving the people that we're talking about.
Hearing
We
them
have
out
to have them at the table. And so we
learning
did
from
that.
them.
And so
Wow.
when I go and talk to folks, you need to know that it's my goal, my mission to know that students are cultivating this. It's being planted right here in South Florida by
That's
students.
huge.
They're creating this app with us. They're actual interns. They're
Yep.
doing research on it. I got a young lady from Harvard, another young lady from FIU down here in Miami. They're researching the parts on the app that are news sections to make sure they're nonpartisan, make sure the bias is as little as possible. They're doing that. These are students. And at the end of the day, when we do get this thing off the ground, we will all be able to say that students created, cultivated, watered, and grew this nonpartisan process.
It's
But
really a
stop
grassroots.
talking about
Yeah.
people unless you talk with them and involve them in the conversation. You're not going to get anywhere. And that's what we're trying to do.
It's really a grassroots operation.
Yeah.
I love the nonpartisan part because it's funny, when I see my parents, one of them's watching MSNBC, the other one's watching Fox. There's no nonpartisan.
Yep.
So I love that you're trying to you're allowing the candidates to come on, but it's going to be, completely nonpartisan.
Yep.
It's going to focus on the issues, and then it's going to educate people so they know going in, who to vote for. And
And so
that's such a big need.
So one final thing about that, about the actual app itself and the overall culture we're trying to create. Again, in my conversations, sometimes my pitch competitions with investors, there's always one in the room. I say, we're creating an ethical space here. And they said, come on, Gino. Okay, I hate to be the guy, but I'm going to be the guy. What makes you think? I know you're a big, tough guy out there, football and everything, but you're going to tell me that these candidates are going to do the right thing? They're going to talk about this guy's mother. He had sex in the hotel, all this stuff. They throw stones. How are you going to stop that? I said, well, you know what? You're right. Absolutely. Thank you.
You
But
can
now
edit
you are
it.
that guy. And I'm going to tell you guy, I'm going to tell you, you're right. These candidates, a lot of them, you can't tell them what to do. You will never be able to do that. However, when they come to best candidate, they will know their expectations.
Yeah.
Ethical culture that people will respect.
Right.
And we have 3 sets of steps and balances, checks and balances to make sure that stays ethical and pure.
So
when
when
you go there, we're trying to create that. Whether it happens or not depends on you, the people, the crowd.
Right.
And there'll be guidelines in place.
Right.
If we set a culture and we give people the expectations everybody outlined before they get there, and people know that's what we're trying to do, the likelihood of the participation is really high. But if you know you're going to get stones thrown at you, you know you're going to be ridiculed, you're not going there. At
No,
least we're trying to create that. We'll do our best to make sure it stays that way by checks and balances we're going to implement. So,
I like
sorry,
that. I
guy,
like
but
that.
yeah, you had to know that.
No, but you're right. You're right because that's exactly what some candidates would do.
Mhm.
So there's checks and balances in place to prevent that from happening. And I'm sure, like, if that was posted, you would have to go to them and say, "Hey, like, this has got to go. Like, you got to
Yeah.
take this part out, focus on this."
So the first step they take when they create a profile is and it's optional, but we want you to fill out and sign an oath of ethics.
Yes.
Oath
Yep.
of ethics. And here's another thing: when you do that, if say I'm Joe Smith and I pull up my candidates on my page and three of them show up, two of them have an olive branch around their head, and one does not. The one that doesn't have the olive branch, they didn't sign the oath of ethics, and I, as a voter, will
Ah,
know that.
I like that.
And the guy that didn't sign the oath will also know that. And actually, voters can say, they can nudge him, hey, why didn't you sign the oath of
Yeah,
ethics? It's
what's
very
wrong with
simple.
you?
What do you plan on doing here? What, who are you? You want me to vote for you? No, sorry. That's what the crowd has in power. The crowd
Yes,
has that power.
they
And we're
do.
going to cultivate that power in here, along with the oath of ethics and along with fact checkers. So those three pillars will hopefully solidify that process to make sure we stay an ethical culture.
So the last question I wanted to ask you then, you know, I believe, people going to the polls and voting and all that. And again, I don't mean to put you on the spot. If you don't want to answer, it's fine. What is your opinion of the mail-in ballots?
Mail-in ballots. So to the country, it's a relatively new process,
It
but
is.
it's an age-old process.
It has been, yeah.
It's always been used.
Yep.
So it's been called absentee ballots before.
Correct.
Absentee ballots, you had to have a reason to
For
actually
not
vote one of
being
these.
able to go. Right.
And so absentee means that you're not going to be in the area of the election. So you have a form to fill out. This is where I'm going to be. I'm having surgery. I'm going to be in the hospital for 2 weeks.
Yes.
Send my ballot to my hospital. Or I'm going to be in Europe. It's my weekly, whatever. My son's getting married, whatever. This is my form. Send it there, please. Now the laws pretty much, you don't have to have a reason. It's just called absentee ballot.
Correct.
But it still had the name absentee ballot till recently. So they changed the name to vote by mail. And
Right.
it just simply adds one more convenience to the elections process. Now,
Okay.
here's where it gets stained. It gets stained because the process of vote by mail is not consistent throughout the country. Every
Every
state,
state.
all 50, have their different elections processes.
You're right.
There's a
Yeah.
federal elections law and you have state elections law. Federal supersedes, but state allows you to do a process that's convenient for your state. So Utah has different states than Florida. Utah's rural. Florida, a lot of rural, but we also have big metropolitan areas. So it's different.
Yes.
So vote by mail just means that you're going to fill out a form and say, send my ballot to my house or my address where I
Right.
want it sent.
Right.
That's all it means. Now, here's the cons of that. The cons is just like a cell phone, it has bad stuff. Hammers are now weapons instead of tools. Vote by mail was supposed to be a tool, but people have realized,
Yeah.
hey, the guy next door, I know he's going to be in New Mexico for 3 years.
I can take his ballot.
Is that a ballot sticking out of his mailbox? Oh, let me take it out and let me
I'll
sign
vote
it.
for
Let me
him.
send it back. So
Yeah.
that's just a small part of that. But that
Yeah.
happens. You also have these people here, the elderly center down the street. Oh, what's 100 people just voted by mail? Okay, let me go pick up their ballots and
Yeah.
bring them in for them.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
I'll open them up and see which ones are Dems or reps, and I'll only send
Yeah.
those in.
Yeah.
That is, but I got to tell you also, Steve, that's such a small part of the elections process.
Right.
Those instances,
Okay.
circumstances are so small. We also need to point out that there are provisions to take care of those circumstances. And so, what people don't know that behind the scenes, elections workers, we've been given.
They're not idiots. Like,
Well, we've been given.
yeah.
What's the word? They gave us training on how to actually look at signatures. Forensic.
Okay.
They gave us forensic. I have a
Oh,
certificate,
wow.
forensic signature whatever certification. I
Yeah.
can tell you what your hoop means if you're a felon or you're psychotic. It's all
Wow.
we get, but we don't advertise that because the king never tells everybody he's got a crown on.
No, yeah, you're right.
It's our duty, our responsibility. The FBI doesn't say I'm FBI. We know what we're doing. We're elected elections officials, and we have that unsung hero thing. But you're only unsung until you say you have that opportunity. So I don't want to blast that too hard.
No, it makes sense.
It's
The only
you
reason
don't.
I asked was because, Trump
Yeah, I mean,
obviously came out and said that all this voter by mail shouldn't be happening. But
it,
the way
they
you
don't
explained it,
understand the elections process.
yes.
That's
Yeah,
what
the
it
way
is.
you explained it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And he tried to kind of say that, the people doing the ballots are just
No.
old and don't know what they're
You know who
doing.
they are, Steve? Those
Let
people doing the
everything do.
ballots.
They're
Those people that are counting the ballot. Those are our mothers, our sisters, our
yeah,
brothers,
they're
uncles, our
giving up their
neighbors.
time to do it.
Those
Absolutely.
are people that have been doing this tirelessly
Yeah.
for years.
Yeah, for the good
years
of
and years.
the country. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
without them, we wouldn't have elections. We wouldn't.
Yeah,
I used to
100%.
train poll workers. For what I call special deputy, and their jobs were to go around all day long during the election period with a two-way radio and tell me what they see. And so we had a whole headquarters. We had
Communication.
people
Wow.
out and about with badges on. That's just one small parameter we put in place to make sure everything runs smoothly. It's a small piece of it. But we don't advertise that. Why would you let people know that bomb sniffing dogs are coming before you get there? You wouldn't tell everybody that.
Yeah.
You make sure that you do your job as you know how to do it and prioritize safety, prioritize elections process within the organization. I don't need to tell everybody that. It's not your business, but never, even more so, you don't need to tell everybody that you're doing that because you're already doing it. You took an oath when you got it in the office that you're going to do that. That's your job.
Wow. I mean, I just learned a lot. You just taught me a lot about the elections process. No, I didn't know that the mail-in thing was different state to state.
Oh, yeah.
I knew it always existed as an absentee ballot, and then I knew because of COVID, it was allowed more prevalent because they didn't want
Other
the older
states
people
changed.
going.
Yeah, our law in Florida changed. I believe it was like 2012. Changed from absentee to vote by mail because I was doing all the. My
Okay,
job was put the flyers out, education out on
gotcha.
social media, so I'd have to change and laws and rules change every year sometimes. So that made it even more daunting for us to tell the public what's going on. The laws change all the time.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
one
do.
thing about it, you have to have laws changing, but you got new people coming here too. Here's
Yeah,
a problem. Here's a big problem. People coming here from other states, moving here,
yeah.
don't realize they have to re-register. Oh, I'm registered in
They
New York
don't.
already.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so
You
we got to
can't
go back
vote
to New
here.
York to vote.
Yeah, you got to go. Yeah.
They stand in line here in March, try to vote. Sorry, sir, you're not registered to vote. Yeah, I am. Call New York. Call this number 516. Well,
Yeah.
you know what?
Doesn't work like that.
That's not good, and we got to broadcast things like that.
No. Well, this is awesome. I can definitely put this in the show description, in the show notes, how to contact you. We can definitely put the app in there. Anything you want listed, I can list your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you want. You just let me know.
Great, yeah.
But wow, this was what a story. I knew of you, but I didn't know your story. So this was really a great episode.
I appreciate it, Steve.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on Husky Talk.
Absolutely.
Gino Herring, the founder and CEO of Best Candidate. It's going to be an app coming out. It's going to be educating voters on the election process. So make sure you check it out right now. It's going to be in Broward County and other counties in Florida, but it's going to be nationwide. It's going to be worldwide. And I think you'll be on the Today Show at some point with this because this is something really, really needed, and it's going to make a difference. So really, congratulations on coming up with that. And I truly believe that this is going to change elections. It's going to change and force candidates to be more bipartisan. It's going to force them to talk about issues and not smear the other. And it's going to give voters like a clearer mind of who they want to vote for. That's really what I'm seeing.
That's the goal.
Because it's so muddled right now. And if they would just focus and just talk about the issues, I think that, change happens. You can either complain about it or you can jump in and try to make a difference.
Precisely.
And you jumped right in and you're making a difference with this. So congratulations.
Thanks, Steve.
Gino Herring, this has been Husky Talk. I am the best podcast host in the universe, Steve Cully. Remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges and throw them back at life.